Hello, my name is Reagan, and you're listening to my daddy on Babbling with Bill.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for listening. This is Babbling with Bill. I am your host, Bill Bernardoni. I want to thank you so much for listening. It really means the world to me. And one thing before we get started, if you could go into that iTunes store, if you could go into whatever podcast platform that you use, and give us a 5-star review, that would go so far in helping make this podcast a success. So in this introduction, before we get to our interview, I want to discuss with you a little bit about my background, what I do for a living, and what this podcast is going to be all about. So again, my name is Bill Bernardoni. I live in the small town of Ottawa, Illinois, with my wife and 2 kids, and I'm a retired political professional, and I currently run Bernardoni Rockland Media with my business partner, where we create, produce, and distribute digital audio and radio content. So basically, we produce and create podcasts and radio shows for a living. And I love what I do. I love waking up in the morning, sitting at my desk, producing great content for people, helping them get the word out about what they want to do for a living, about helping individuals, businesses, organizations get the word out about whatever they want to discuss. I love it. I really do. It's what I was meant to do. And I truly believe that. Now, it's not always what I thought I was meant to do. I'm a 2011 graduate of Olivet Nazarene University with a degree in political science and minors in radio and history. And I always thought I was meant to work on political campaigns. And that's something that I did. And I did it fairly well. But the Republican Party changed. It started to change even before I graduated from college. But it wasn't until I graduated and I started working for the clients that I worked with, and most of whom I still talk with on a semi-regular basis, and I have great respect for. But the Republican Party started to change to where it wasn't lining up with what I have long since believed. And because of that, I came to a crossroads. I could continue down this path, working for candidates who believe things and will try and put in effect things that I do not under any circumstances believe or support. And a lot of consultants, even ones that I know, were able to do that. And God bless them for it. God bless them for it. I was not. And it took me a lot longer to get to that question, to get to that point, that fork in the road, than others. But I got there. And I made the switch. And now I'm doing what I love. I'm having a great time doing it. And I'm glad to bring you and excited to bring you my thoughts on a variety of different topics. Now, as I was talking with my business partners about doing this, and my wife and my family tried to come up with something a little bit different. I came up with this idea, and I think it's something a little different. It's something that you don't see from podcasts and radio shows and stuff like that, to where I will openly go and give you the other side, where I will talk with a lot of people who I don't agree with, and I will give them a platform to talk with you. I'm not just going to talk to Republicans, or I'm not just going to talk to Never Trumpers. This is going to be a place to discuss ideas in an open and an honest manner, where Trump supporters will be able to come and talk and say, okay, he's not perfect. Here's why I support him, X, Y, Z. Where progressive Democrats are going to say, here's why I support this, X, Y, Z. Here's why you're wrong. It's going to be a place to discuss ideas from every possible perspective. I'm going to have an episode on student loans where I myself have very strong thoughts on what should be done to address student loans. I wrote an article about it. I will share my article with you and my thoughts with you on that. I will also talk with people who strongly disagree with me, who think I'm insane for thinking the way that I do on student loans. We're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about sports in a little bit with George Will. We're going to talk about entertainment, movies, everything. But it's going to be a place for ideas to be discussed so that we can better understand people who disagree with us. Because that's something that the right and the left don't do. They refuse to look across the aisle and work with the other side. They refuse to sit down with someone because, oh, you're wearing a MAGA hat, or, oh, you're a Bernie supporter, or whatever. This will be a place for everyone to discuss ideas in an open and an honest manner. It's that simple. That's what this show will be all about. Last week, I had the honor and the privilege to talk with one of my absolute heroes, and I mean that. I have been a fan of George Will's for the longest time, and I had a wonderful, open, and honest conversation with him about Donald Trump, about the 2020 election, about our beloved Chicago Cubs, and I think you're really, really going to like it. This is Babbling with Bill. I am your host, Bill Bernardoni. My conversation with George Will is next.
You're listening to Babbling with Bill. Be right back.
My next guest is perhaps the most powerful journalist in America, according to the Wall Street Journal. He's won a Pulitzer Prize, written multiple best-selling books, is an NBC News political commentator, the author of The Conservative Sensibility, available wherever books are sold, and most importantly, is a fan of the best damn baseball team there is, the Chicago Cubs. George Will, thanks for taking a few minutes to join me today.
Glad to be with you. Being called the most powerful journalist in America is like being called the tallest building in Topeka. I'm not sure journalists have, or for that matter, ought to have much power, but go ahead.
Well, it's your first book in 5 years, your first political book in a decade. Why now?
Well, it seems to me there's ample confusion about what conservatism is or can or ought to be.
Yes.
And that it's time to answer the threshold question, which is, what do conservatives want to conserve? And my answer is the vision of the founders, the separation of powers to make government safe and to filter and refine public opinion, the doctrine of natural rights, that government exists to secure rights essential to the flourishing of individuals of our nature. That's what we're about. Limited government at a time when I think many of my progressive friends, looking at the presidency that they helped create, the modern presidency occupied by its current occupant, are having progressive doubts, and it's about time, about their 8 decades of criticizing the separation of powers in order to emancipate the presidency.
Exactly right. The presidency changed, the vision that the founders had for the presidency changed a long time ago. When did it change, and what can we do to bring the presidency back to the founders' original vision?
Well, we have to restore congressional supremacy, which used to be a cardinal tenet of conservatism, which was that Congress was Article 1 of the Constitution for a reason.
Damn right.
That the president is, if you read the rather spare descriptions of his duties in Article 2, comes down to taking care that the laws are faithfully executed, which necessarily makes him secondary to those who make the laws that he is to execute. So first of all, we have to restore pride and institutional prickliness, if you will, on the part of the House and the Senate to defend their prerogatives against an overbearing executive who, and this is true of this president, it's true of his immediate predecessor, it's been true of most presidents since Woodrow Wilson, who want to govern increasingly by marginalizing Congress and wielding executive power.
Exactly right. You didn't mention the president even once. Was that done on purpose?
I was on the Bill Maher show, and he said, Mr. Will, Trump's name doesn't appear in this book. And I said, neither does the name of Doris Day. This is a book about political ideas, and he doesn't deal in ideas.
No, he doesn't. That is that's very true. I'm a retired political professional. Worked on a presidential campaign, multiple congressional campaigns. And I'm no fan of the sitting president. I left the Republican Party around the same time you did in early 2016. So what are voters like me supposed to do in 2020? The Democratic Party has lost their damn minds. The Republican Party is led by someone who is by no means a Republican. And what are we supposed to do?
Well, to my mind, the most important thing is to get this current president out of public life. I don't think the Democratic Party has lost its mind. I think the candidates right now are playing to the Twitter version of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's what I meant. What I meant by what I said was the current candidates who are running for president have seemingly lost their mind.
Well, it does seem to me that the big four at this point, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders are mistakenly and ruinously hitching their wagons to the most far left portion of their party. They do not represent the middle of the Democratic Party.
No, they don't.
Biden, I thought, was going to, but Biden has decided to go on a grovel tour of apologies for all the things he said and thought for the last 40 years, thereby making himself look not like the adult in the room, which is what we were promised. But I think this is real. We're in about the top of the second inning.
Yes, yeah, we are. We are.
And I think some others, and I'm hoping, for example, that Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado will get more of a hearing. He's not my kind of guy. I mean, he's a progressive. I'm a conservative, but he's intelligent, educated, and temperate.
If this trend continues within the Democratic primary, do you agree with me that Trump has a real serious shot at winning re-election?
If the Democrats go to the American people and say, here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to take away your private health insurance from 180 million of you, and you generally like your private health insurance. And by the way, we're going to try and bring back the busing of your children away from your neighborhood schools and have them spend hours on the bus at rush hour instead of learning things. And by the way, did I mention we're going to have